Hey, and welcome to Capital City Sports, your source for the Carolina Gamecocks. I'm Ed Cahill.
And I'm Julia Melvin. Coming up on this week's show.
The Gamecocks headed south to take on the Florida Gators in Gainesville on Saturday. With Steve Spurrier making his return to the Swamp, did he have something in store for his former team?
We also have a double header of men's basketball highlights for you as the Gamecocks opened up their regular season over the weekend. We'll head down to the Colonial Life Arena later.
But first, the Gamecocks closed out their SEC schedule in the Swamp on Saturday.
That's right, Ed. The Gamecocks are 22-point underdogs this weekend in Florida, and according to the first quarter, we know why. We'll send it down to the Swamp for more.
Spurrier back in the Swamp. That was the story of the week as the Gamecocks traveled to number 3 Florida, and the Gators would set the tone out of the gate. First play, Percy Harvin on the reverse, 22 yards, but an early victory for that tough Carolina defense. They force a Jeffrey Demps fumble, and Darian Stewart recovers. But you can see on the ensuing drive, the Gamecocks had nowhere to go on offense. Steven Garcia looking to scramble, but just no lane to run in. And then the play that let us know it would be a long day. Chris Smelly flushed out, looking to make anything out of nothing, and it backfires. Brandon spikes the pick and the 6, and as they say, the route was on because the next Carolina drive, one play later, and Smelly, deja vu. Ahmad Black picking off the tipped pass, and from there, it was Harvin taking care of the rest. One play, 26 yards, gone. And it's 14-0 and not even close to finished. On the ensuing kickoff, a disaster of epic proportions. Dion LaCorn receives, pitches back to Chris Hale, and it just goes all sorts of wrong because Gators recover on the one, and you know what that means? Tim Tebow, the guy's like a bowling ball with feet. You know he's going to get in, and it's 21-0, all off Carolina turnovers. And for Carolina, back on offense now, Steven Garcia, well, he gets to find out what Florida grass tastes like. Meanwhile, after another Carolina punt, Florida goes for the option pitch, and they fumble. Eric Norwood, how good is he at always being around the football? Unfortunately, it wouldn't spark the offense, and they'd punt again. So what's Florida do now? Well, they just abandon the option and go to the air. 46 yards down the sideline, Deontay Thompson puts up 6 more, and it's just getting painful now. But a small moral victory. Ryan Suckup from 41 out gets the Gamecocks on the board before the half. But out of the break, and it would take about 2 seconds to realize a comeback wasn't in the cards. First play, and Percy Harvin makes the Gamecocks look like they're in slow motion, 80 yards to the house. But then, moral victory number 2 if you're counting at home, give a game ball to Ryan Suckup. He puts up 3 more this time from 44 yards, but Florida answering field goals with TDs today, folks. This time, Jeff Demps gets in on the action, and at some point during his 38-yard run, you have to wonder how so many guys can be so fast. Meanwhile, the Gamecocks offense was still trying to make a big play, but Garcia would join the pick parade. Will Hill started the play somewhere in the parking lot, managed to run all the way back and snag it out of the air. It's just that sort of day, and wouldn't you know it, how about one more for good measure? Chris Rainey makes it 56-6. And that's the way it would mercifully end. Worst loss of Spurrier's coaching career. And the Gamecocks would head back to Columbia on the losing side of this battle. For Capital City Sports, I'm Brian Walker.
Now for more on the game Saturday, we'll send it to Corey Burkhardt in the boardroom.
All right, thank you, Julia. Welcome into the boardroom here on Capital City Sports. I'm Corey Burkhardt. This pre-Thanksgiving edition of the boardroom, I'm being joined by this guy. He's Alex Riley, former sports editor for the Daily Gamecock. He now covers USC for the Seneca Daily Messenger. Alex, how are you this week?
I'm good, Corey. How are you?
Good. Well, we got this week's show. We got our final show the week after the Clemson game, and then you graduate. So your time is just running out here. I mean, how do you feel about that?
I feel absolutely fantastic, and I'm not going to lie about it.
Now, when you say fantastic, obviously you're gonna miss us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, one thing I wish I could have missed was that game in Florida over the weekend down in the Swamp, 56-6. Alex, your overall impressions of the game?
Obviously, it was a tremendous mismatch. Obviously, we thought South Carolina's defense would prove why it was the number 1 defense in the SEC, and they proved why they shouldn't be the number 1 defense in the SEC. over 300 rushing yards, 100 some odd passing yards, had 3 touchdowns by the time the first quarter was done. Obviously, this was an overmatched Carolina team, and the scoreboard says it all.
Okay. Now, if you're someone who doesn't know this team, you're going to blame those 56 points on the defense. But if you go back to the first quarter, the game was on CBS, so everybody saw it. Chris Melly, interception taken to the house. That's 6 points. The next drive, Chris Melly, interception. A couple plays later, they run it in for a touchdown. On the ensuing kickoff, we have that special teams disaster with the throwback, the fumble. They score on that, so that's 21 points off of turnovers in a span of 2.5 minutes in the first quarter. So from your standpoint, obviously the defense was put in a hole very early.
Well, the defense was put in a hole. The only score on those 3 possessions that you can question them for is the second one, the 26-yard run by Percy Harvin. They just absolutely did not play their assignments on that play. Other than that, you've got an interception return for a touchdown, obviously not the defense's fault. And then you've got a 1-yard line stand. Now, they did stand for 2 plays before Tim Tebow finally bulldozed his way into the end zone. So the defense really cannot be put to blame on this one. But the problem is, 2 of those 3 scores end up going as the defense gave up the touchdown, even though it was only a total of 27 yards for 2 scores. So it ends up getting put on their stat sheet, and they end up getting blamed for it in the stat sheet.
Now, once the boys had the kickoff mishap there in the first quarter, do you think the emotions and everything for our players, do you just think they were done at that point?
I think so. I really think after the second interception they were kind of done. And Steve Spurrier said they did the kickoff, the lateral on the kickoff to try and build some of that momentum back. But you can't do that when you're already 14 points down to a team that is possibly going to be playing for the national championship here very soon. So I think that was just an errant move on their part, but I think their emotions were gone after that 14-0 deficit they faced. Carolina's offense just did not have enough to come back and play.
Now, Captain Munnerlyn questioned the call to do that play. You're down 14 points and you're trying something risky like that. At first, after the game, he said, I questioned it, but I trusted in my coaches. Well, it didn't work out. So do you think that was a wise move by the coaches?
No, I don't think it was. I think that's the kind of play you run when you come into a second half and nobody's really expecting it. Carolina ran it in 95 or 96 against Clemson, and it worked for 96 yards to set up a 4-yard touchdown run for the Gamecocks. So it's something you do when you have a little bit of a lead, a comfortable lead. It's not something you do when you've automatically fallen behind 14-0 because you see what the disastrous end result could be. If it was a 14-7 game, okay, maybe that puts them up 2 scores. Carolina could have, but when you're already down by 14 points, that's not something you can do.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk more about the Florida game. We're going to preview Clemson, and we might even talk about USC basketball. We'll see you in a bit.
Coming up after the break, we'll head over to Williams-Brice Stadium to hear from some of Carolina's fans. But next, the men's basketball team opened up their regular season against Jacksonville State on Friday. We have the highlights from that game on the other side of the break. Don't go away.
The Darren Horn era officially began last Friday as the Gamecocks men's basketball team took on the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. For more, let's send it over to the Colonial Life Arena for highlights.
The men's basketball team kicked off their season at home at the Colonial Life Arena against Jacksonville State on Friday, and the Gamecocks got off to a hot start. Dominique Archie with the steal goes coast to coast for the lay-in. And first team All-SEC from a year ago, Devin Downey finds Archie again for the slam. The Gamecocks defense was strong as well. Devin Downey goes for the steal, gets some help from Mike Holmes. He'll go right back to Holmes for the slam. The Gamecocks out to the 10-0 lead, and they would not let up for the rest of the first half. Downey keeping this one all on his own with a sweet 3-pointer, and then Brandon Rayleigh-Ross would get some of his own on the nice swing pass by the Gamecocks. But towards the end of the first half, Rayleigh-Ross would go down with an injury, holding his knee here, which would turn out to be a knee sprain. He'll be out 3 to 4 weeks, but going into the half, the Gamecocks would have the 47-30 lead. South Carolina came out in the second half and continued their solid play after the Mike Holmes steal. Devin Downey finds Dominique Archie here for the easy lay-in. But the Gamecocks would find themselves in foul trouble, further testing their depth. This and one by Jacksonville State gave them a little bit of momentum. For Jacksonville State, Brandon Crawford led the way with all scorers with 28 points. But the Gamecocks would respond quickly, as you can see here on this play. Pushing it down the court. Give me all 3 of those. The Gamecocks would continue their fast-paced offense, They would finish with 6 players in double figures. Mike Holmes and Zam Frederick led the way with 17 points apiece. Holmes making this look easy. He came up a little gimpy on this play, but he would be all right. The Gamecocks would go on to win with a final score of 89-76, and South Carolina moves to 1-0 on the season. Head coach Darren Horn picking up his first win as South Carolina head coach. For Capital City Sports, I'm Mike Wadsworth.
Now that we've checked out the men's basketball team, we'll send it back to the boys in the boardroom.
All right, thank you, Julia. Welcome back into the boardroom. I'm here with Alex Riley. We're outside of the Carolina Coliseum, where USC's basketball team used to play until the Colonial Life Arena was built. Alex, over the weekend, USC men's team opened up their season. They had the win on Friday night against Jacksonville State. How'd they look in that game?
Obviously, it's Jacksonville State. It's despite the fact there were 2 Gamecock teams on the court, it's a lesser, inferior opponent that the Gamecocks should have beat, and they did. And they actually beat them pretty handily. So I think you saw a lot of good play from the bench. You actually saw some good play from guys like Brandon Conrad and Mitchell Carter, some of those different guys. So to have that kind of performance to start the year, that's good. Obviously, Brandon Straley-Ross goes down with a knee injury in that game. That's going to hurt the Gamecocks if he can't get back pretty soon. But I really think that it was an overall pretty good victory.
Okay, if you're Coach Darren Horn, how do you feel about the state of your team right now?
Well, obviously, you have to feel pretty good because they've come away with 2 wins to start the season. They have a good win over Winthrop already, and they've got a win over Jacksonville State. Your team's scoring a fairly amount of points. I think they've cleared the 75-80 mark each time they've played a game. So to have those kind of numbers, the only problem is, like I said, Brandon Straley-Ross. Obviously, Carolina relies on Devin Downey a lot. They rely on Zam Frederick a lot. But to have that third guy in Ross who can lead the point and can shoot the jumper, having him hurt really hurts this team. It really hurts their depth.
Okay, we're going to have a lot more basketball coming up later this season and towards next season. But right now, Alex, football is the sport. So let's go back to the football team. Offensively, the quarterback alternation, Smelly, Garcia, Smelly. Is that really going to work?
No, and it should be done. It really should. You shouldn't see a lot of that anymore. You're obviously probably going to still see some rotation, but not to the extent that Coach Spurrier has been using it. He's already hinted this week that they're going to stick with one quarterback or try to find one quarterback to play the entire Clemson game, barring any major changes. And he thinks that quarterback's going to be Chris Smelly. He hinted that Smelly has the, quote, inside track on that job for the Clemson game. But, yeah, I think that 2-quarterback system is done for Carolina. They've got to find one guy and stick with him.
All right, if you go back to the stats from Florida's game, our offense, we had 53 rushing yards the entire game. Well, Florida, they had 53 rushing yards in the first quarter, en route to one of their largest rushing yard performances in 2 decades. Jarrell King said it after the game. Coach Spurrier said it after the game. Garcia said it after the game. The run game is going to have to do better. Unfortunately, it really hasn't done it this year, so what's a coach to do?
Well, the problem that Steve Spurrier is facing right now is he has a mobile quarterback in Steven Garcia who can make the throws and can also run, but he really favors the pocket passer of Chris Smelly. Problem is Chris Smelly's legs seem to weigh a ton, and he can't move around very much. That is hurting them as far as the run game goes because a lot of the running yards Carolina's had over the last couple weeks have been Garcia on the scramble, Garcia on the run out. Mike Davis, Eric Baker, all these running backs have not been able to really carry this team and pick up the slack that they've been leaving. So it's going to be a struggle. Carolina doesn't have a big play threat at running back like Florida does, like Clemson does, like most of the teams in the SEC do. They don't have one guy that can, go for 75, 80 yards a game, not even 100, just a threat to run the ball for 3 yards a clip. Carolina can barely get 2 yards a clip out of their running backs.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break. Alex, you going to stick around for a couple more minutes?
I'll be here.
All right. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to preview next week's game against Clemson.
A few weeks ago, our very own Mike Wadsworth spent a few hours outside the Williams-Brice Stadium to talk to some of USC's fans. For more on that, we'll send it out to the Brice.
Here at Capital City Sports, we bring you all the South Carolina football highlights, but what's a Carolina game day like? Well, if you take a walk around Williams-Brice Stadium, you'll find out what it really means to be a part of Gamecock Nation. This was a 7 p.m. kickoff versus Tennessee, but regardless of how far away kickoff was, fans were ready.
We came out about, 11 o'clock? We left home about 9 o'clock, got here a couple hours. Man, we just going to tailgate, have a great time, socialize with everybody, have fun. Even the Tennessee guys, hey, we're good, we're cool. But when game time, when the cops come down that corridor, it's over. We are now enemies.
One thing that's for sure is that Carolina fans were prepared for the occasion. It was the Halloween season, and Carolina creativity came out in the form of, pumpkin carving. And surrounding tailgates at places such as Seawells provide an opportunity for friends and family to get ready for the game, as well as a student tailgate. But Gamecock fans of all species are out on game day. There's so much that's unique to South Carolina football, and one of those is the Cockaboose Railroad, which provides a nice location for Carolina fans to set up their tailgate. And over at Gamecock Village, all fans have the opportunity for food, a chance to win prizes, big screen TVs, and the Carolina band makes their stop by before they head into William Brice Stadium. Across from Williams Brice Stadium, Bojangles is the site for game day radio shows, but as you can see by the cars in the background, traffic is a major issue on game day. Gridlock starts hours before kickoff, but some Carolina fans don't seem to mind. With such a unique experience in Columbia on a South Carolina football game day, it's not surprising to see opposing team fans out and about.
There we go. Home, sweet home to me. Good old Rocky Top. Woo! Rocky Top, Tennessee.
The young Gamecock fans and the old alike are out enjoying the day, but food is the centerpiece of any tailgate. Burgers, hot dogs, sausages are all around, but there are those Gamecock fans out there who really know what to cook on game day.
We're cooking a nice shrimp boil today, a low country boil, man. We got some good sausage in there, some potatoes, man. We got some good low country shrimp. We're gonna just have a great day, and anybody's free to come and just eat with us, man, and party and have a good time here with really what we're trying to do here today, because it's all about Gamecock football.
With all the extravagant tailgates and the screaming Carolina fans all around, there were those fans out there who could really capture what South Carolina football is all about.
We've been doing this for the last 20 years. We love Gamecock football. We love the coach. We love the spirit of the Gamecock Nation. And as far as we're concerned, there's no other nation than Gamecock Nation. And we appreciate the fan support. We appreciate entertaining Tennessee today, and it's going to be a great game. We're going to clean their clock and go home, and, man, look forward to the next one. We've been out here today since about noontime. And we're going to be here until about noontime tomorrow if it keeps going the way it's going. But anyway, we've been in this spot for probably the last, I'd say at least the last 10 years. And we love it, and there's nothing like Gamecock Nation, and we're proud to be a Gamecock.
Now, after all this tailgating and partying, it's time to head into Williams Brice Stadium, where Sir Big Spur is ready for the game, and Gamecock fans are getting riled up. Now we're in the student section where the players enter and Williams Brice Stadium just explodes. Now, of course, there's the game where Carolina came out big on top of Tennessee in this one. And with the victory means the party is just beginning. The fans will go back to their tailgates until all the food and drinks are gone and enjoy the last bits of another Carolina game day. Now, the South Carolina football games are the highlight, but an entire game day at Williams Brice Stadium is as unique an experience as you'll find anywhere in college football. For Capital City Sports, I'm Mike Wadsworth.
Coming up after the break, we'll go back to the boardroom to preview the Gamecocks' final regular season game as they head to Clemson for a showdown with the Tigers. But next, could the men's basketball team jump out to a 2-0 start on Sunday? We'll head back to the Colonial Life Arena for more.
After beating Jacksonville State on Friday, the men's basketball team looked to stay perfect as they hosted the Winthrop Eagles Sunday afternoon. For more, let's send it back over to the Colonial Life Arena.
That's right. Thank you, Ed. The Winthrop Eagles making the trip down from Rock Hill, taking on the South Carolina Gamecocks at the Colonial Life Arena on Sunday afternoon. Coach Darren Horn won in his debut on Friday night. Hopefully the Gamecocks could get to 2-0 early in the game. Brandon Conrad, he's going to drain the three, put the Gamecocks up 3-0. He had 6 points in the game. Dominique Archie, like he always does, slams it to the house. 15-0. The Gamecocks jumped out over the Eagles early. Austin Steed's going to get in on the action. He had 8 points on Sunday, 2 of them right there on the layup. Gamecocks up 17-0. Eagles get on the board right there with the three-pointer from Faison. Winthrop's fans making fun of the Gamecocks for the loss to Florida the day before. That's all right. They would not lose today. Mike Holmes doing work in the paint. That's called a bucket. He would get injured on the play, but fine from there. Winthrop's Burton's going to drain the jumper. He's not done. He's going to get a three-pointer right here. The Gamecocks still lead big time. He had 13 points. Zam Frederick, get used to this because he always does this from downtown. Hits the three. Gamecocks up 47-31. He ain't done. He's got one more in him. On the turnover here, he's going to take the ball, come up the court from way downtown. 50-31, the Gamecocks on top. He had 12 points in the game. Teammates showing some love for him there on the sidelines. They're also going to show some love for Dominique Archie, who dunked in the first half. He's going to do it in the second half. The Gamecocks up by over 15. Evka Benulas is going to get in on the dunking action. Put the Gamecocks up 69-40 right there, doing work. The Gamecocks will roll the Eagles 86-63 as Evka drains the three from downtown, and that's the way it was. Corey Burkhardt, Capital City Sports.
Since we didn't have a show last week, you probably didn't get to see the highlights from the Arkansas game 2 weeks ago. Well, we have them, so let's send it over to Williams-Brice Stadium for more.
The Gamecocks taking on Bobby Petrino's Arkansas Razorbacks in their final home game of the season. And it was senior day. One senior that will be missed is Kenny McKinley. His parents right there, decked out in support of the Gamecocks, and he gave them plenty of reason to cheer right off the bat. That Steven Garcia finding him for an easy 30 yards. That would set up a Garcia rushing touchdown. And bad would go to worse for the Razorbacks as Casey Dick just airmails it to Addison Williams for the interception. Now, it wouldn't be as bad as it could for Arkansas as Chris Smelly found himself swallowed behind the line, but then Ryan Suckup from 54 yards puts it through perfectly, and just like that, it's 10-0. The defense was just nasty as they forced the Razorbacks to punt, but Munnerlyn muffs it, almost disastrous, but Carolina does recover, but the bullet wouldn't be dodged for long because Steven Garcia, well, the kid's just going to want this one back. He finds a Hog jersey, but it wouldn't get too bad because Darian Stewart gets all riled up, and Casey Dick gets
jacked up.
Thank you, Corey Burkhardt. On the next drive, Chris Smelly, looking good, finds Kenny McKinley for 25 yards. That drive would stall inside the red zone. Here's Ryan Suckup on for the 25-yard chip shot, and he misses it wide right. And the Arkansas Razorbacks take over on downs. And the Razorbacks knowing exactly what to do. Casey Dick finds Jarius Wright 70 yards down the field, and it's a CFF for the Gamecock defense, folks. But that's okay. They wouldn't take all the big play glory because Jared Cook catches that pass, and he's going to put the moves on the defender and haul 66 yards down the field for the score. Now, time running out for the Razorbacks in the first half. Casey Dick gets sacked, and like our friend Jared Munch, well, he's going to Hail Mary, WWJD. That pass is not going to find a Razorback. It finds Stoney Woodson to end the half. Now, the second half starts promising for the Gamecocks. Chris Culliver, he's always dangerous, and he's going to nearly find daylight, but he finds the shade instead for 41 yards there. Now here's Chris Smelly hitting McKinley for 25 yards down the field. Ryan Suckup would do a little bit better this time, putting the Gamecocks up 13, but the Razorbacks dink and dunk all the way down the field, and there's a 4-yard touchdown pass from Casey Dick. After the Gamecocks punt again, things aren't looking good for the Garnet and Black. Here's Casey Dick hitting his man London Crawford 30 yards down the field, but Jordan Lindsay would come up with an interception later in the drive, and that sets up this 15-yard touchdown pass. God, what beautiful shooting to Kenny McKinley. Right there, baby. The Gamecocks are back in the driver's seat of this game, and Mike Davis, well, he would cap off an 11-play drive with this 15-yard touchdown run. But the Razorbacks just wouldn't go away. After another long drive, Brandon Barnett would pound it in from the 1, and here's where things got interesting. It was too little too late for the Razorbacks, but they try an onside kick anyway. Carolina would recover, but a bit of a fight breaks out you can't see. Culliver was throwing punches, he'd be ejected, coaches and officials would get the players separated, and all was well. That was pretty much it for the game as Carolina came out with a convincing 34-21 win over first-year coach Bobby Petrino and the Razorbacks. For Capital City Sports, I'm Justin Fabiano.
Now for more on the game Saturday, we'll send it to Corey Burkhardt in the boardroom.
All right, thank you, Julia. Welcome back into the boardroom. I'm being joined by Alex, $2 Bill Riley. Now, Alex, Julia did a pretty good job of host video this week. How do you think she looked?
She's Julia. She always looks good.
Okay. Alex, still single Riley. Maybe we can set something up. We'll see how that goes. Now, Alex, next week the Gamecocks travel to Clemson to take on the Tigers. Obviously, the game is always huge down here. Is it any different this year?
No, it's not any different. In fact, if anything, the game has more implications than it's had probably in the Steve Spurrier era at South Carolina. The Gamecocks, aside from maybe last year, the Gamecocks come in, if Clemson beats Virginia this weekend, the Tigers will need a win against the Gamecocks to become bowl eligible. They have 2 wins over 2 FCS teams, and that's the Citadel and Furman. So they would need Carolina to be that 6th bowl eligible win. Doesn't mean they're going to get in. The ACC has a lot of mediocre teams battling for bowl slots this year. So it could be a big day. Obviously, Dabo Swinney could be fighting for his job. Beats Carolina, who knows? Maybe they hand him a contract at the end of the game and say stick around for a couple of years. So I think this year has a lot of implications on it. South Carolina needs to beat Clemson. It's the one thing they haven't done during the Spurrier era is beat Clemson consistently. They've at least played with other teams consistently. This is a big one they have to have.
Okay. South Carolina has the 7 wins. They're going to a bowl. Does winning or losing this game affect their bowl status?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because what we have now in the SEC, especially in the Eastern Division, is you have Vanderbilt, who's at 4-3 right now, and possibly with a win next weekend over, I believe, Kentucky. I believe that they could, they've already beaten Kentucky. They could beat Tennessee to become a 7-win team and a 5-3 team in the SEC Eastern Division. And then a season finale game against Wake Forest is obviously another winnable game. Next thing you know, you have South Carolina and Vanderbilt, who are both 8-4. Vanderbilt has a better SEC record. Vanderbilt has a better storyline possibly going in, and they're the higher team in the Eastern Division. South Carolina could get passed over for a New Year's Day Bowl in Florida, left to compete for maybe the Chick-fil-A Bowl, maybe even lower than that, something like the Liberty Bowl or the Independence Bowl. South Carolina desperately needs to get this win to get to 8 wins and at least have a chance of making it to a New Year's Day game.
Now, after what happened at the Florida game, you know, South Carolina always has that week off before Clemson. After getting killed by 50 points, is it good or bad to have an off week?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. We really don't know right now. South Carolina's not one of those teams where you get to judge how they bounce back after a bye week. You can look and go, well, they had a bye week before Tennessee and they came out for a pretty lopsided victory against the Vols. Okay, that's all well and good. The Vols are not a very great football team this year. Obviously not. They're not going to a bowl game. So now you've got your rival at the end of the year. They're could be coming off a loss or a win at Virginia. They're reeling because their coach has been fired. They're still in a little bit of turmoil. They might need a win to get bowl eligible. South Carolina, it's going to be tricky to see how they respond this week because nobody really knows. They could come out and shut down Spiller, Davis, all those Clemson running backs, or they could come out and have another performance like they did against Florida.
Talked about Virginia. You know who's a big fan of the Wahoos?
Your boy Mark.
Big Money D, my roommate Mark Driscoll, a big UVA guy. Now, Alex, let's go into the Clemson game. I need a prediction. I need a score. What do you think is going to happen?
Carolina, no matter what the stat sheet says, Carolina is the better team in this football game. Better complete team. Clemson has a better running game. Obviously, they have 2 backs who are going to be first or second round picks in an NFL draft at some point in their careers. So, but overall, I think Carolina is the better team, and I think they should come out the winner on this one. It's not going to be a runaway on either side. I think Carolina's going to come out a 24-21 winner, a field goal towards the end of the game. One of those situations we had 2 years ago with Ryan Suckup hitting one with 4 or 5 minutes left to win it. But I think Carolina's going to come out a winner and get to 8-4 on the season.
All right. I get a lot of heat because I don't pick this football team to win. Now, they're playing a down Clemson team who I have a feeling won't be playing for anything after Thanksgiving. So I'm going to pick the Gamecocks to win by 10. And that's the way it is. For Alex Riley, I'm Corey Burkhardt. Have a happy Thanksgiving and enjoy the game.
By 10, he means 10-0.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us this week here at Capital City Sports. Be sure to check us out online for all of our exclusive web content at capitalcitysports.blip.tv for more.
You can also download us on iTunes. Just search Capital City Sports and download us on your iPod.
We'll take next week off for Thanksgiving. We're going to spend it with our families. We'll be back after the Clemson game to give you highlights for that game in our last episode of the fall semester. For all of our crew and my special co-host today, I'm Ed Cahill.
And I'm Julia Melvin. Have a great weekend and a happy Thanksgiving.